Hi everyone, happy Monday. Here we are. Congratulations, we made it through another week. Not only that, we have made it through another month. Can you believe it is July? My name is Bonnie, and for those of you that don't know me, well, first I'd like to welcome you to Life Happens. And for those of you who don't know me, I am a mother of 5, a grandmother of 3. I'm a law enforcement officer, author, speaker, and a president and founder of a not-for-profit program geared to youth that are showing at-risk behaviors. And so in the month of June, I celebrated my 20-year anniversary for the agency that I worked for. And when I began my career, I started in communications. Hi, Chris Cooks. I started in communications with my agency as a 911 dispatcher, or as a 911 dispatcher. And I was quickly promoted to dispatch supervisor. And then in 2006, I made the decision to transfer to a position in law enforcement. So in January of 2007, I went through the academy and began to work road patrol. Then in May of 2014, I transferred to our Youth Relations Bureau to pursue the passion of working with the youth in our community. So in March of this year, or when the whole COVID hit and our schools were closed, I received a phone call that I was being reassigned to communications to work in my previous position as dispatcher. And if I'm completely honest, I momentarily felt as if all the progress that I have made over the last 20 years was just ripped out from underneath my feet. And if it wasn't for the 4 other people that were sent with me, I would have let my insecurities probably get the best of me and kind of taken it personally. So for whatever reason, I have spent most of my career feeling as if this is this constant need to prove that I deserve to be there. And I'm not sure that I've ever said this out loud, but for as much as I love our agency and love the work that I do, I often feel underestimated and undervalued by those that I work with. So being sent to work in a civilian position in communications instead of a certified position on the road did feel a little personal at first. So now, don't get me wrong, I honestly love working in communications. I hadn't done it for a long time, so as much as I love that part of my career, after the initial shock of being sent back there, I was grateful. I was really grateful to be able to be there again. But when the protests began, thank you, Nicole. When the protests began, it became more difficult for me to be in the room and not be a part of protecting our community and my fellow officers the way that I want to and the way that I was trained. Then a few weeks ago, hi Steve, a few weeks ago, as life continued to change, I was sent back into our community to work road patrol again. And as I talk this through with you, I kind of feel like I'm reliving my entire career in 1 year. Anyway, I was reminded of one of the reasons I left the communications positions in the first place. As I responded to the calls and I had the ability to speak with the people throughout our community, one of the most difficult parts of being a dispatcher is that most of what you hear is negative. In communications, they handle most of the complaints for the entire county. They field and navigate all of the calls for help for the county, and they monitor the status and the needs and the location of almost all of our police, fire, and medical units within our county. So very rarely does a dispatcher actually get to hear the entire story of the outcome of the emergency. Hi, John. of the emergency, and very rarely does a dispatcher hear the gratefulness for our units on the road, from our units on the road, or from the community itself. So it was a relief to me to be out on the road in the community again and to hear and feel the support of our community once again. So with the extra hours that I had taken on in communications and everything being shut down, from March through June, I did little more than go to work, go home, and watch much more news than I had ever watched in probably my entire life. As I was watching the civil unrest and the lawlessness in our country grow, hi Zaida, continue to grow, I found my negativity and discouragement and frustration growing along with it. And I found myself constantly contemplating what retiring from my career right now would look like. And as the number of email announcements that we get of fellow people in the agency retiring, my desire for that option continued to increase. One of the most favorite parts of my job or what I do is the fact that every day is kind of like a new adventure. We never know exactly what's going to happen, but also one of the most stressful parts of our work is that every day anything is possible. And hi Rob. Every day anything is possible, and we never know where that day is going to lead. Our thought process is completely surrounded by preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, and trying to find some healthy balance between the two. Hi, George. One of the things they teach us in Academy is that complacency kills. Every moment we let our guard down to the potential dangers around us, we are putting our lives and the lives of our community at risk. That already, stress that we're under dealing with that is coupled with the thought process of the fact that there are people out there that are being encouraged to find the opportunity to make a name for themselves by way of fighting with us and antagonizing us and making a spectacle of us until they are able to stimulate the negative response they are looking for in an attempt to destroy our careers and our lives every chance they get. This past Wednesday, as I was preparing for work, I found myself very seriously processing the way our country is being torn apart and the tactics people are using in an effort to destroy this country, as well as the career that I myself and so many others have worked so hard for and are extremely proud of. As I thought about what the citizens across our country have been facing with the rioters and the vandals, the first word that came to me was terrorism. So I Googled terrorism, and by definition, it means the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Hi, Candy. Hi, Jesse. To me, this completely describes the act of violence that our communities have been facing from the people that have been terrorizing our cities and across the country by forcing their way into properties and businesses, by attempting to take over and destroy whatever it is they set their mind to. To me, then the word treason came to mind. So I Googled that. And by definition, treason is the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the authority or overthrow the government. Do I have to remind you that law enforcement is part of our government? So all this got me to thinking about 9/11, and I thought of how the people on the first few planes had been completely caught off guard and appeared to be taken over and taken down without much of a fight. But once the last plane understood what was going on, they took a stand and decided they were not going to let the terrorists accomplish their goal. I love the Toby Keith song that came out after 9/11, courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. In that song, he sings, "A mighty sucker punch came flying in from somewhere in the back." And that's what I feel like. I feel like we're doing our best to find our way through the battle of COVID, and our country and our law enforcement has taken a sucker punch from somewhere in the back that has knocked the wind right out of us. But something rose up in my spirit on Wednesday as I remembered the rest of that song. Justice will be served and the battle will rage. The big dog will fight when you rattle his cage. And you'll be sorry that you messed with the US of A, because we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. As I thought of the people that are doing their best to destroy all that all the American people have fought for, I was reminded how, unfortunately, most of the people that are being used to accomplish this goal, sorry, got kind of lost, to accomplish this process are not even old enough to remember 9/11. And I realized that I will be damned if I'm going to give up my career and everything that I've worked for because of them. And I worked my ass off to get where I am. Giving it up and backing down from a fight goes against everything that gives me the right to wear my badge. I then thought of Pearl Harbor. And I remember my favorite line in the Pearl Harbor movie. I don't know if the Japanese general actually said this, but it definitely was well placed in the movie. After attacking Pearl Harbor, he said something to the effect of, "I fear we have only awakened a sleeping giant." As Wednesday went on, I texted a few of my family and friends and I asked them what they thought of when they thought of major events of US history, especially ones that caused us to come together and fight for something, moments that truly revealed the spirit of the American people. People responded back to me with first 9/11, of course, and then all the hurricanes, Wilma and Irma and Charlie, and that list is like super long. And then somebody brought up Columbine, and others talked about World War II and how the people came together donating rubber and metal to contribute to the war. And then I thought about the women who stepped up and took care of their families as the men went off to fight. And then a friend of mine mentioned the Montgomery bus boycott. And I honestly had to Google it to find out more about this incident. I read how in 1955, Rosa Parks was not being defiant or intentionally breaking the law as I had come to understand it. She had sat in a place that she was allowed to sit in. This space that she sat in was for when the white people ran out of room. And on a side note, can I just tell you that I cannot stand to refer to people as white or black? It annoys the crap out of me. But I digress. Rosa Parks was asked to move to make room for a white man, and she refused to move and was arrested. And this happened during a time when African Americans truly lived in fear of what may happen to them. But she did not physically fight. She did not become rude and disrespectful to the law enforcement that were simply doing their job. She simply and quietly expressed that it should be her right to not be forced to give up her seat by not moving. This began the process of African Americans refusing to use the Montgomery bus line until their policies changed, and this became a huge turning point of the civil rights movement. We just celebrated 4th of July, Independence Day. And in 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. Among the words of this document, it reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." What Rosa Parks did in 1955 was a reflection of those words. On another side note, I do not need the self-justification of the words of the Declaration of Independence to be changed from all men to all people are created equal, because I understand that women have already been fought for and that battle was already won. As I searched for the right words to share with you today, I kept thinking how a person's history has the ability to be a very interchangeable part of their world. There are times when history is a dangerous enemy that seems to do everything in its power to overtake us and prevent us from ever reaching the lives we were meant for. I know people who hate everything they came from, and they even hate part of their racial background, and this hate causes them to hate themselves. And I find those people are fighting a serious battle within their hearts that is preventing them from ever truly living a life of complete freedom. Then on the other hand, our past has the ability to be an amazing gift that molds us and prepares us and propels us into the life and purpose and success and freedoms that we are truly meant for. We make a choice to love ourselves and everything about who we are. Understanding that it would be impossible to be who we are without every event that has touched our lives. Then we make a choice to take the good, the bad, and the ugly of whatever it is our past has given us and make something beautiful from it. The Bible verse that kept coming to me as I thought about all of this was Isaiah 43:18-19. God is telling his people, forget about what has happened. Do not keep going over old history. Be alert. Be present. I am about to do something brand new. It is bursting out. Don't you see it? Before this verse, God goes through the process of reminding his people of their past and all the challenges that they had faced and the challenges that he had already brought him through, and to get them where they were in that moment. But then after he reminds them of their past, he tells them that that's enough looking back. Forget about it. It's time to look ahead at all he is about to bring them into. There have been several times where I've heard someone use the metaphor, or different people use the metaphor about there being a reason that we have a big windshield and a small rearview mirror in our car. And they explain that this is because we are meant to spend much more time looking forward than we ever do looking back. And if we spend too much time looking in that rearview mirror, we will eventually find ourselves in an accident. But the other day, after I had helped an elderly couple pack some things into their car that had flown off the roof, I started reflecting on this metaphor and the benefits of being able to look in the mirrors that are available to us. These mirrors have the ability to give us a helpful perspective of the road behind us and ensure that we have a safe amount of distance between us and the things that have the potential to be damaging to us. As we move forward in life towards success and prosperity, it is healthy. It is healthy to take time to inventory the road behind us and be aware of all that is happening around us. This process should be used as a helpful tool as we make our way through our journey. I often say that none of us get to choose where we come from, but we all get to choose where we are going. We cannot erase our history, nor should we want to. It shows the progress that we have made, and should help to remind us that anything is possible. In 2016, here in the United States of America, an 11-year-old girl with the same skin tone as Rosa Parks signed an $11 million contract with Whole Foods to sell her lemonade on the shelf. If this doesn't demonstrate the awesomeness of the American dream, I don't know what does. I feel like we had lost an appreciation for all that we have here. We became complacent in believing our way of life is just a given and not something that needs to be protected. Our freedoms have not ever been free. And it is not in the nature of the American people to sit back and watch as others determine the fate of our country and our lives. My 17-year-old Danny is my go-to when it comes to talking about history. In 4th grade, he read a book about Philadelphia and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and begged me to take him to where all these things took place. It's that winter break, I loaded 2 high school boys and 2 elementary school boys into our Chevy Malibu, and we drove from Naples, Florida to Washington, D.C. In D.C., we saw the actual Declaration of Independence and took as much as we could possibly take in of our nation's capital in the few short days that we were there. It was the first time I had ever been there. And I remember standing in front of the Capitol building and looking around and being completely enamored by the history I was surrounded by. I looked at my boys in complete childlike excitement, and I said, "Do you know where we are? We are standing in Washington, D.C. I wanted so much for them to feel the excitement that I was feeling in that moment. From D.C., we went to Philadelphia to take in the awesome history of that town holds. And I loved that my child understood how precious this part of who we are is. Hi, Colleen. I asked him the other day if he remembered why all that was so important to him. And he told me how he had just learned about it in a book, and he loved how a bunch of normal everyday men had been able to accomplish all that they had. He told me about George Washington's exit speech from office, and I loved that he could still remember what he learned. And then we talked about how our government was never meant to be run by career politicians. The offices that were created were designed to be held by everyday American people who are living out the decisions that are being made in office and completely understand everything that they are fighting for. Right now, today, I find it interesting that I am able to talk to one person about what is happening in our country, and all their concerns and thought process completely revolve around COVID and what is happening with COVID. And it baffles me how they are able to miss the way our nation is under attack. But then I can talk to someone else and all of their concerns and thought processes about the civil unrest and the lawlessness in our country that our country is facing, and they totally disregard anything having to do with COVID. It's almost comical, the contrast between the two. For the first time in U.S. history, many of 4th of July celebrations were canceled because of COVID. And unfortunately, I have to say that I was incredibly grateful they were canceled. Not because I'm concerned about COVID, but because at this point, large gatherings, every large gathering is a potential that leaves us vulnerable to the violence that is building in our country. Unfortunately, I honestly feel like all of this is going to get worse before it gets better. We are in a battle, and an internal battle is always the most challenging. I've heard many people say that I cannot imagine going through all of this without faith. And I am reminded of the verses in Joshua 1, where God's people are about to begin the process of fighting for everything God has promised them. He tells them, "I will be with you. I will not give up on you. I will not leave you. Strength, courage, give it everything you have, heart and soul. Do not be timid. Do not get discouraged. God, your God, is with you every step you take." And I hold on to that. Proverbs 3:5 tells us to trust the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. And Romans 12:17, this is important, tells us, never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see that you are honorable. I truly believe somehow, some way, America is going to be great again and come out better and stronger on the other side of this madness. As I watch the speeches and the videos and the news and talk to the people of our community, I cannot help but feel that what we are seeing is only a very small portion of what is really happening behind the scenes of everyone's lives. This week, I spent some time recalling all that I have been through this year. The turmoil that my family and I have been facing began literally on January 1st, and really even before that. COVID and the riots are only a small piece of all the things that have happened in our lives, and at this point, nothing seems to be letting up. Well, I thought about that. I thought about how when I am dealing with someone at work, their issues in that moment, that I am with them, and their responses to whatever is happening is also a very small piece of the puzzle of things that are going on in their lives. There is always, in every circumstance, so much more going on beneath the surfaces of what we are able to actually see. As we watch from our perspective, we only see the tip of the iceberg. So as you watch all that is unfolding around you, before you decide to be offended or judge someone else for whatever it is they are doing or saying in that moment, take time to remember that we are all human. Every single one of us. None of us has the ability to be perfect. And all of us have so much more going on than what we allow the rest of the world to see. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please pray for our country and the civil unrest that we are facing. Right now, I am planning, thank you, Bobby, I miss you. Right now, I'm planning on being here next week, but then I'm gonna take a few weeks off and kind of wrap my head around where all this is going. And my intention is to be back in August, but as you know, life is a big, huge mystery at this point. I'm gonna close out in a quick prayer. Father God, please reveal who you are to everyone who is under the sound of my voice. Set the world right and do what is best for all of us. I lift everyone up to you within the sound of my voice. I do not know what all of their needs are, but you do, Father God. I ask to meet them right where they are at. Help them to know that you love them and that you have a love for them that is beyond anything that they could ask, think, or imagine. Give them rest for whatever it is that is wearing on their heart, and be with them as they go through their week. Help them to see themselves and everyone else through your eyes. In Jesus' precious name, amen. You guys have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.